Okay, you guys, Miss Dieseletta here. I'm here to talk about a PC bug that Respawn has no plans to change or fix anytime soon. Now, before I get into the video, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Make sure you hit that like button. Let's go. Okay, you guys, so yesterday, John Larson, live balance designer for Apex and Respawn, tweeted a thread on TwitLonger called Input Types in Apex. And this thread went over whether they're going to make tap strafing accessible on controller. Is Respawn going to allow controller players to move while looting? How to implement more options for interact keybind separation on controller, and whether they're going to revisit aim assist tuning. So I'm just going to go over a few things that I saw on this thread as far as exactly what John Larson, known as JBeebs on Twitter, put in this thread. He started by calling out Cloud9's PvPX, saying, I recently saw some tweets from @PvPX. PvPX is a professional Apex Legends player / streamer for one of the most recognizable esports organizations known as Cloud9. Now, C9 PvPX put up a post that said, should controller players be able to reload behind doors without opening the door? And there was a lot of good feedback on that. And so John Larson started off by saying this. He saw some tweets from PvPX and he figured he could address, which means he's going to explain it in a way that tells us why Respawn were not going to do something or why they are going to do something. And are we going to make tap strafing accessible on controller? He directs people for this information to go read his movement, tech, and mobility in Apex TwitLonger, which I will be going over in another video. But as far as to say, will they be adding this for controller? The answer is no. He's stating that tap strafing really exists as a design problem and not a balancing mechanic. So where people are looking at this as something that was implemented in the game, it's actually something that's in the game that they're having a hard time with fixing right now. If you guys can recall, a few weeks back, they actually went in and said that they removed tap strafing, and to that we can see that tap strafing was never removed. So maybe they tried to remove it and then it created more issues. It created other issues. So they replaced things back to the way that it was before. So for them to add it for controller, that's actually something that's not identifiable as something that they can do right now. And this leads right into the next point, which is, will they allow controller players to move while looting? Once again, just as they stated with the tap strafe, moving while looting is a bug. And so now we're seeing a repeating pattern here for especially PC players, okay? Not just PC players, but mainly keyboard and mouse. There's a lot of bugs and there's a lot of things that they are able to do on keyboard and mouse that controller players are not able to take part in. And due to crossplay, if you've ever came up against a PC player and you've noticed that you've removed all of their shield and you guys are mid battle and somehow they've gone from nothing back to purple shield again, that's because while they were fighting mid battle, they were switching shields within a box that may have laid somewhere near them. He also goes on to say, if I were to rewind to early Apex development, I suspect I'd agree with the design decision of stationary looting. Soon after Apex released though, I saw an efficient looting metagame emerge pretty quickly. This was before joining Respawn, and as a player, I thought, I bet they never thought this whole shield swapping mechanic would end up being such an integral part of combat. Fast forward a bit, and stuff like menu cursor speed options and gold armor finisher reworks signal acceptance of this emergent looting gameplay. In an effort to improve parity between input types, it seems reasonable to think moving while looting on controller should be an option. I'll defer to fellow dev Rapstar's replies to a control scheme proposed. Looting cursor with right stick, moving with left. So this is something that another developer has stated as a reply in response to another player known as Sniped Down. And so they go on to blame all of this on UX control, and it's more of a capability that's just for keyboard and mouse, simply because of the mechanics of the mouse and things you can do as far as the scroll wheel and all of that. So these things are not available on controller, and they don't have a way to solve this issue, but they are working on something. Whereas maybe the controller player can use one stick inside of the box and then the other control stick to move the player outside of the box. So they're definitely working on something. They just don't have any solutions at hand. And knowing that this is a glitch for PC, some people are saying, why not turn certain things off altogether? Because as they've stated, they didn't know that it was going to advance this far in the game. And with the way that the game plays out, of course, they are a bit more happy with that versus other people being unhappy without that ability. Now that brings us to our third point within this thread, which is, will Respawn implement more options for interact keybind separation on controller? And this is referring to the first thing that was stated by C9 PvPX. And he says, referring to the classic controller conundrum of having to reload on a door with a knocked teammate by your feet, I hear you. I'm exploring options here and improving the interact system's design, but keybind separation is a little trickier, as his fellow Respawn developer at Rapstar points out. And this brings us to our final point, which is revisiting aim assist tuning. In response to that, he said, we hear you loud and clear. Considering we offer different input options, it's not awfully surprising that there are gameplay affecting variations between mouse and keyboard, controller and PC lobbies, and console and PC lobbies. Anyone who's experimented with different platforms or input types can attest to this. So while I can't make any promises or provide specifics at the moment, I can say we're actively evaluating it. And then he concluded to say, the above ideas in bold letters should be thought of as feature requests, often requiring input and resources from multiple teams. In a live service game, juggling priorities is part of the nature of the beast. And as I see community feedback, I take note. This shows that they do have developers and people that are working and playing within the game that are hearing some of the things that people are saying and taking note to the things that people are saying. But for some things, they're just not able to change. So they're going to allow these things to stay in there, even though it may hurt one side versus hurting another. Also, I wanted to point out a reply to John Larson's tweet. Aussieman Diaz cries. He replied with saying, please leave aim assist alone for console-only lobbies. If you keep catering to pros and other top players with nerfs and changes, you will alienate 99% of your player base who aren't in Pred and Master. So what do you guys think about that? Let me know down below in the comments and about everything that was discussed today. And so until next time, you guys,